Hello there and welcome to episode 30 of Colonization Project. We are not in the 20 20 something anymore. We're in 30. So that's pretty cool. Anyways, we are returning to the Jool atmospheric diver. I forget its actual name, but we are sending it into the atmosphere of Jool because that's what it's supposed to do. We are going to be dumping this nuclear engine into the atmosphere again. Probably not the best thing to do when you have an atmosphere full of hydrogen. But we are sending this into the atmosphere at an absolutely insane 8 kilometers per second. Actually, that was like 8.5. And the probe experiences around 36 Gs of deceleration. Probably not the most comfortable thing for the probe, but I don't think it should feel uncomfortable because it's not sentient. At least I hope it's not. But we are descending into the atmosphere of Jool. It does have a very thick atmosphere, so it will take quite a while to descend to the point where the probe explodes, because that is what is going to happen. Jool does not have a surface, because if it did, it wouldn't be a gas giant, it would be a rocky planet. So yeah, we're just descending into the atmosphere, collecting a bit of science while we go. The electric charge generation is not the best on this thing, so what we eventually do, we don't get as much science as we could if we just put a bunch of batteries on it. But we do get quite a bit of science from this mission, which is good. But you can see we are descending into the atmosphere. I do have better time warp installed, which is probably a good thing, because if I didn't, this would probably take way too long in order to complete. Because, yeah, we're not descending at a very fast rate, but we do get some quite nice views of the sunset of Jool. Sort of like a purplish pink color once we get into thicker parts of the atmosphere. And which means that the atmosphere is hydrogen, helium, stuff like that. Not a very good expert at how atmospheric composition affects sunsets, but oh well, sunsets are cool. It's more similar to carbon dioxide atmospheres than it is to oxygen nitrogen atmospheres, which is interesting. Anyways, the probe has exploded, but we still got all that science, which means we can unlock exotic alloys, which gives us engine mounts and stuff, and specialized command centers, which gives us better command pods. And now we are launching a brand new spaceship in one launch on a Leviathan. This is the Sol fusion tug, not Sol as in SOUL, rather Sol as in SOL, like the sun. And this is a fusion tug which is going to resupply Sunset Star with fuel, because if you remember, I previously said that Sunset Star is out of fuel, and that is not good. So we're sending up this refueling mission with the very efficient fusion engines. And yeah, that's pretty much all this mission is. These are the magneto-internal inertial confinement fusion engines. How they work, I don't know. But I do know that they combine lithium and liquid deuterium. They combine those two things to produce thrust and fusion. Stuff like that. It's pretty cool. I don't know how it works. But we're launching this anyway. Probably someone at the KSP knows how it works. Maybe they don't. Maybe they just slapped a few parts together and said, hey, this should work. The key word there is should. No guarantees. In fact, the manufacturer that we got this engine from the warranty said warranty void if exposed to air. So yeah, we're not sure how reliable this this should be, but hopefully it should work out fine. Otherwise, yeah. Yeah, otherwise it wouldn't be good for the crew of Sunset Star. Because they're out of fuel. I mean, they're not out of fuel. They have enough to get... They have probably just enough to get back to Kerbin, but they don't have enough to capture into an orbit of Kerbin, which is bad because it doesn't have a heat shield. I do intend to reuse Sunset Star and Opportunity. Maybe not Opportunity, because Opportunity is kind of rushed together, and yeah, it's has a few layering weaknesses and isn't modular like Sunset Star is. Sunset Star, we can replace the engine module with better technology and just have the habitation be the same. Opportunity, we can't do that. So what I'm going to do with Opportunity, I do not know yet, but I'm sure I'll find it out eventually. Maybe I'll just leave it as like a monument in low Kerbin orbit. Maybe I'll do that. Speaking of monuments in low Kerbin orbit, all the old probes from like the early episodes are still around. Like, you might be able to, sometimes you might be able to see like Mun 1, if you remember that. It's still in orbit of Kerbin. Oh wait, it might be still in an orbit of Kerbin. It might be in an orbit of the sun, because no, it's in an orbit of Kerbin. Because if you remember, that probe didn't actually make it to the Mun. It didn't have enough fuel. So it's still in Kerbin orbit. I haven't deleted it or anything. Although, if frame rates get too bad, then I might delete it. I don't know. Oh yeah, you can see it right there. It's that elliptical orbit. That's not the current vessel. So yeah, it's still there. We might make monuments out of the old probes. Maybe we will, maybe we won't. Maybe we'll bring them back to Kerbin, so like, I don't know, like a museum can have it or something. Anyways, we are heading out to Eve with the power of those 4 fusion engines. You can also see they're not continuous fusion engines, they are pulsed fusion engines. So they function in bursts of acceleration rather than a continuous thrust. Although I'm pretty sure that's just the animation, because if you actually look at the acceleration is continuous. The plume, however, is pulsed. And I do have to use time warp, like physical time warp, because these aren't interstellar engines. These are the far future tech engines, which means you can't time warp through acceleration with them. So we're probably not going to use these to go interstellar. They don't have nearly enough ISP. To go interstellar, we're going to need like ISPs in the millions of seconds, not the thousands of seconds that these provide. Because to go interstellar, you need to go pretty fast. You need to go like a significant portion of the speed of light in order for that to happen. Anyways, our next launch involves a new module to Apollo base, launched atop a Titan booster. Oh, you may also wonder why we didn't recover the solid rocket boosters in the last launch. I really don't want to recover the solid rocket boosters anymore. We don't actually gain much money from it, and it's just more effort than it's worth. Liquid fuel rocket cores, on the other hand, they're much more fun, much more enjoyable to land, and also, yeah, they're just more enjoyable to land. Parachutes, you just kind of have to wait and wait. Yeah, pretty boring. They don't make... they're not as exciting as landing them propulsively. It's quite hard to land a solid rocket booster propulsively. However, this new shipment up to Apollo base is a workshop and agricultural support module. We did send an agricultural support module in the last episode. However, I misspoke. These are agriculture modules. Yes, there are two different modules. There's agriculture support modules, then there's agriculture modules. Don't know the exact differences between the two, but the ones that we sent up last episode convert ore into water and gypsum into fertilizer. So we have water and fertilizer now. You can also see the booster just exploded. Pretty expensive, but at least the core survived. So this one, I don't know what it does, but we also have some workshop modules on board, which means that if we have material kits and specialized parts, which we don't, we could actually start producing stuff on Apollo base, like new modules. We can use the modules to make the modules, which is pretty cool if you ask me. Because then we won't have to, once we start producing material kits and specialized parts on site, we won't actually have to send up anything to Apollo base anymore. Because what we could do then is we could, instead of shipping them up, we could just make them on site. And we can make them on site. You can also see we have a comet in the system. We actually have 2 comets in the system at this time. So might send a mission to them, although I'm not sure what science we can get out of it, because they're not actually actual planets, they're just asteroids. Once we get fusion engines, we might actually might is the key word, put a comet in orbit around like Kerbin or something, just for the sake of it, because it's funny seeing a comet in orbit of Kerbin. Or though maybe it could be Minimus, because I remember in one of the KSP2 videos, like they talked about the material of Minimus and how, like, if it was like ice, it would just melt away. I still think that Minimus is made out of mint ice cream. Like, even though the science doesn't check out, I still want Minimus to be made out of like minty ice cream, because that's Kerbal. Like, we can, like, you have an entire planet made out of ice cream. Anyways, we are landing at Apollo base right now. We are going to attach this to the the storage module, because I think that's the more industrialized section right there. Well, industrialized that crew can go through. Although the entirety of Apollo base is really just industrial. Like, it's not designed. The only part that's not is the core module and habitation module. And everything else is just built to make the colony self-sufficient and keep the crew alive. And even the habitation modules are just designed to keep the crew happy, and that's about it. But maybe the habitation module has like TVs and stuff, and maybe they're playing Human Space Program in the habitation module. I don't know. Anyways, we have landed and are just getting it into position before sending our engineer out to go attach the 2 vessels together, and also disassemble all the redundant parts, because we want to keep the frame rate above 2. Like, that's the minimum requirement, above 2. The frame rate is only going to get worse from here. But thankfully you don't have to suffer through that. Rather, I can speed it up in video editing. I believe this is actually sped up to maybe 6 times speed. I always speed up like the EVAs and stuff to 6 times regular speed, because these aren't the exciting parts. The exciting parts are the rockets and stuff. But you can also see we're disassembling a lot of second or third stages from previous missions, which we discarded on the surface of Minimus. But we don't need those anymore. We're also disassembling 2 of the ISRUs. I figured out we don't actually need them, because I thought you need to convert ore into fertilizer with the ISRUs, but as it turns out, the other module is just doing that already. So we don't actually need those ISRUs anymore. I think we're almost to the point where the colony is self-sufficient on supplies. We're almost there. All I need to do, I think, is ship up a new container for water, and then I think we have all the resources and conversion chains necessary for it to be self-sufficient on supplies, which is very good. Which means that the crew can stay up there for as long as they want to stay up there, because habitation times and stuff. Our next goal after supplies are material kits and specialized parts, which will allow us to make stuff on site and will be very helpful. We're also returning the 3rd stage to Kerbin, because the 3rd stage is partially reusable. It wouldn't be that much effort to make it fully reusable. I might do that. Because again, it's, why not? Why not just move the heat shield up a bit and make it fully recoverable? That's a pretty good idea. I'm gonna do that. But anyways, we are returning it very close to the Kerbal Space Center. Really, the only thing that was missing there was the inclination and a bit of distance, but we did land really close. But now we are performing a quick little mid-course correction of only about 500. Yeah, it's 500 meters per second. However, as you can see, we do not have a shortage of delta V. In fact, we have quite an abundance of delta V. Actually, no, we don't. We only have like 2,000 meters per second. Not enough to do a baristic trajectory, but enough to... Oh, look, you can see 2 of the comets right there. Anyways, not taking a very fast trajectory to Eve, but we don't have to be too worried about efficiency. But it's not so efficient that we can burn for days on end. No, those aren't for later fusion engines. Anyways, we have unlocked something, and then another aerospace composites. Forgot what the first one was. Now we are launching a new probe to Neidon. Yes, we are launching a probe to the furthest planet in the Kerbal system. Block isn't a planet. In case you don't know, Plock is the analog for Pluto. You may also notice that the graphics have changed. Very slight. However, I have replaced the spectra clouds with the stock visual enhancement clouds, and I also figured out that stock visual enhancements has outer planets mod configurations. So we are just launching this up into orbit. We are sending this out to Neidon, like I said. I'm not sure if that's how you pronounce it, but it is the analog for Neptune. You may be wondering how the heck we're going to get a probe to Neptune in the length of a series. Short answer is, if we take a normal trajectory there, it's going to take us like 80 years to get there. For comparison, the Jool probes took like 2 years to get to Jool. And the Neidon probe doing a simple baristochrone trajectory will take 80 years. Yeah, I just said that, but emphasize the huge amount of time that would take. So yeah, we can't take a normal baristochrone trajectory. We have to go fast, and we're not taking a taking normal home-in transfer. I got them mixed up. Taking normal home-in transfer will take 80 years. Taking burst to current trajectory, I don't know how long that will take. But we are expending we're leaving like 1 to 2 kilometers per second left. So we will get there in like 4 years or thereabout. However, this mission was gone when I realized that whoops, for some reason the engine isn't producing any thrust. I used this Kerbin Atomics engine, but as it turns out, system heat doesn't like to play nice with it. So the engine wasn't producing any thrust. So yeah, that put an end to that mission. Thankfully, the transfer windows to Neidon and other outer planets come quite quickly, almost once every year. So we will be able to send another one next year. I also forgot to tell you what it was actually called. It's called Old Horizons, because I was trying to think of a name for it. Then I was just like, you know what? Old Horizons sounds good, because, yeah, New Horizons, older. It was the first thing that came to mind. But now we are getting the Jool orbiter into a lower Tylo orbit in order for it to conduct visual scans, because it has finished resource scanning. So now we're having it do a bit of visual scanning, although not sure why we can't just look at images of it, but I guess the scientists want visual maps? I don't know. That's what we're doing right now. We're not doing too much else. We're just getting to a nice circular 70 kilometer by 70 kilometer orbit. And we can move on to the next one. I keep on forgetting to add crossfades in this episode. Not sure why. But now we are launching a brand new SSTO. This is Ranger, and yeah, you can probably tell the naming theme for the SSTOs now. It is a brand new SSTO capable of carrying more crew, more cargo, and it's just an overall better vehicle than the Endurance, although we still will be using the Endurance for special conditions. But this will be our brand new SSTO. It's using 8 nuclear engines and I believe 8 Rapier engines. Yes, we are using Rapier engines now. And we are sending this out to Minimus because we're rotating the crew of the Minimus orbital outpost for 2 reasons. The first of which is the crew is homesick. The second of which is that we're sending the we're sending Enterprise back for some improvements, because the mod that I'm using for the starships has received quite a big update, so I will be using those new parts, and I didn't want the entire space station to get deleted because they updated a mod. So we're just sending this up to the Minimus orbital outpost in order for it to rotate the crew. You can see using the Rapier engines does prove to be quite helpful for getting into orbit. We can get up to much higher speeds in the atmosphere, and we can also use a closed cycle for increased thrust. And also, what else are we going to do with that oxidizer? Burn it into nuclear engines? I mean, we could do that. But these nuclear engines can't handle the insane temperatures of that, although I'm not sure if it produces higher temperatures or not. But it does produce more thrust. Why? That's a very good question. I don't know. Anyways, we are carrying the crew up into orbit, and you may be wondering what the different modules on this thing are. Well, I mean, they're not modules, but the different parts of it. The first sort of section is obviously the cockpit, then the one behind it is the crew cabin, then there's the docking hatch, then there's a cargo bay. The SS can both carry crew and cargo. It can't carry a lot of cargo, but it can carry some small satellites up into orbit and probably a bit beyond that. So, yeah, because the Endurance, if you remember, it can't carry any cargo up into orbit. Mostly because it doesn't have room for our cargo bay. But the first versions of the Endurance barely had enough fuel to get into orbit. Like, we returned with like 1 meter per second to spare, and yeah, those are some pretty tight margins. This one, using the latest technology and most efficient engines that we could possibly get out of the R&D facility. Anyways, you may also have noticed that have I deployed the solar panels yet? I don't know. Maybe I'll be able to see it in just a second. But if the solar panels have deployed yet, you may notice that yeah, there isn't one on one side. So yeah, I'm gonna have to fix that. Apparently I forgot to just enable symmetry on the solar panels. So a bit of a mistake there. However, we're still producing more than enough electricity. It just might not look the best. But we haven't arrived at Minimus after I don't know how many days. Oh, it says right there, 7 days. But yeah, you can see this solar panel is asymmetric. Not the best. I kind of like symmetry, but it's not too much of an issue. It's not like we forgot to add a wing on one side. Probably that would have been a very serious issue that I would have catched probably very quickly. But yeah, losing a wing or not having a wing isn't very, very good for a plane. But it is fine for a plane that flies in space because there's no atmosphere in space. But you can see we have arrived at the Minimus orbital outpost, and we can now do a bit of repositioning of all the vessels. First thing is first, we have to transfer all the crew into the Starship Enterprise. Then we have to undock the Starship. We have to place the docking port on the Starship back onto the Minimus orbital outpost, because if you remember, we stole one. Then we have to undock it. Replace the docking port. Send the Endurance somewhere else so it doesn't interfere with docking, and no, not the Endurance, Enterprise somewhere else so it doesn't interfere. And yeah, send it back to Kerbin. This is what we're doing right now. We are attaching Ranger to the same docking port that the Starship was at, because just figured that would be the best one. We don't have many spare docking ports on the Minimus orbital outpost at this moment. I think this will actually be the last official crew of the Minimus orbital outpost before we turn it into a spaceship. Because right now it's just a space station. I want to turn it into a spaceship that can construct things around other planets, because that's cool. But yeah, we've harvested almost all the science we can from the labs. not much to talk about here because, yeah, it kind of speaks for itself, you know. We're just docking to the Minimus orbital outpost. Yeah, name one thing that's exciting about this. We're going at we're going extremely slow. Probably like a snail could catch up with this spaceship if you have it in the right frame of reference, of course. We're actually traveling like 200 meters per second right now. And relative to Minimus' surface, however, relative to the space station, we're traveling 0.2 meters per second, though I don't know how fast snails travel. That's a very good question that I do not know the answer to. I could probably figure it out very quickly, but I'm recording a video right now, so doing a quick little Google search is probably out of the question because, you know, I'm recording a video right now. But we are sending Enterprise back to Kerbin. You may also notice that the plumes of the engines have changed. I have done a bit of editing with the config files to allow for better plumes. Speaking of waterfall and engine plumes, I have actually been making my own engine plumes for like OPT, orbital, the mod that I'm using for the SSTOs, because, you know, very good parts, but they don't have waterfall configurations for them, which makes me very sad. Anyways, we are heading back to Kerbin. Not sure. Oh yeah, I think I just deleted the Sarnis transfer window alarm. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I just did that. Because as you can see, yeah, we don't have the time to launch a Sarnis vehicle right now. But we will be sending one of them, like the first thing next episode, we're going to be sending something to Sarnis on a very quick trajectory out there. Although I will save that for next episode. You can see we have entered the atmosphere quite quickly. I time warped a bit too fast. Crew lost consciousness again. We haven't had the best of luck keeping the crew conscious on Minimus returns, because we've always been taking steep trajectories into the atmosphere to avoid having to like go into a parking orbit. So yeah, probably not the best thing for the crew, but you know, you look in the bottom right corner, they seem pretty happy, because, you know, they're Kerbals. But we are landing. We are landing back at the landing pad. Igniting 2 of the engines because we're igniting 3 of the engines because if we only ignited 2, then we wouldn't have enough thrust. That wouldn't be good. We would just end up crashing into the ground at quite a significant speed. So we're just igniting 3 because oh no, we just went down to 2. But yeah, we're landing, and yeah, this is taking quite a while. Although better safe than having it go boom. Yeah, it's probably better, especially because we have crew on board. This is taking a really long time. I'm not sure why I didn't speed this up. I'm running out of ideas to talk about because it's taking forever. But thankfully, after we land, that should be the end of this episode. Which should be... Oh, look, you can see the dust. So that means we're pretty close to landing. Although, for some reason, I decided to go into like a hover right here. This is taking forever. But thankfully, we've landed. And also, that will be the end of this episode. So thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video.